Hello, it's Einar from Unity Center again. Today we're going to interview Jamye Price from, she's born in Ohio and live in Sedona, a place I would like to visit. And she is having a course here this weekend. It was super full booked almost at once. So I had to check out why is she so popular. And when I go to her website, she has been working with things that's very interesting. Ascension, light language, and you go around the world teaching these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been working since in this kind of stuff from 2004.
Yes, professionally. Yeah.
Yes. And then I want to start a little bit about, it's always interesting to know where you started. What did you do before? Mm-hmm. Was you a normal person or what?
That's debatable. So, I love this part of my story because I love how we can all have a different beginning. I was not a psychic child. I had what you would call a normal life where I wasn't aware of my psychic abilities. I could not make it happen. And in my late teens, early 20s, I started having experiences that I couldn't make them happen, but it was something that would come in as a thought and it would be proven within a couple of hours. And I just thought, wow, that is a weird coincidence. How did that happen? And then it would start happening more and more often. And my opening just kind of happened over time. And it went through these slower periods and then stronger periods. And so it's nice to know that you can not be psychic or open or feel like anything unusual is happening to you, and then it opens up. And this is what we're seeing a lot of right now. This is why Ascension is my passion, because so many of us are opening up. And when that started happening to me, I didn't quite realize what was happening, but as I moved further and further through it, I started recognizing that I knew intuitively how to work with energy. I started recognizing I was hearing my guides, and they would talk to me about how to do healing. And in the first...
How old were you
then? This was in my mid-20s. When the first stage of that started happening, I would almost go a little unconscious, like I was zoning out. And then I would kind of come back to, and I'd be like, why am I thinking in my head about the healing properties of the color green? That is just so weird. Why would I think that? So I was hearing them and not quite realizing at the time what it was. And over time, of course, I did start recognizing what that was. And once I started recognizing that I could work with energy, it just became such a passion. So it began by seeing colors come out of people and connect to other people. So I would see couples that were connected at their chakras, their lower chakras. I would see people that would connect out of their crown chakra or their heart chakra. And I started recognizing that we could connect in those different ways and help each other with just even chakra healing and fulfilling different kind of connections like that. So from there, I began working covertly on my family and friends. I didn't know any better at the time.
What did I think then? Were they suspicious of them?
No, they weren't. They would get like a cold or a flu, and I would do some work that I was taught very directly to do on myself. I would do that on them, but I wouldn't tell them. And they would get better within a few hours or one day of when that began. And I just never told them. So that's not a good practice, but I didn't know at the time. So then eventually I started working directly on family members and friends that would just get on my table and let me do healing work on them. And it started to grow from there, where it just became such a passion of mine. And as that occurred throughout time, I came across an Axiatonal Alignment and had that done. And that opened up
What do you call it?
level.
Tonal?
It's an Axiatonal Alignment. So it's a process that, to the best of my knowledge, was brought in by Toshiro Tachiren, who was a walk-in back in the late 80s and early 90s and is no longer here. But she brought through a lot of very cutting edge work. And the Axiatonal Alignment was part of that. The Axiatonal system is like the meridian system that's in the body, but it's in the energy field and acts as a bridge between the physical body and grid systems that are around the earth and even beyond the earth. So it's essentially like connecting in your cosmic meridian system, and it helps us to receive more of those cosmic frequencies, those higher frequencies that are so natural and replenishing for us. So that process opened me up more, and that's the time where the light language started happening.
Okay. But did you go on any courses, or this everything just came to you?
For the Axiatonal Alignment, someone else did that to me. And then eventually I did learn how to do it, and I think it's a wonderful process. So there is a modality that I was taught by my guides called Crystalline Soul Healing, and that I do and I developed. And then there is, I also do an Axiatonal Alignment that I learned from someone else. And then the light language, that is a whole separate modality that you can utilize just on its own, or you can combine it with many other things. So the light language started occurring for me in 2003, and it would come through my hands.
It just came out
Yeah.
without you doing anything?
Without me doing anything. So I had clients, they would lay on the table and they would close their eyes. And at that time, I was being taught how to do healing by my guides. So I was very accustomed to having a conversation with them and just moving my hands in ways that I was guided and observing what was occurring. And they would talk to me about what the person was releasing or what they were healing. They would show me different things. So I was accustomed to that process. And I started noticing that my hands would just twitch and start to move without me doing anything. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And so I asked my guides, what's happening? And they would either give me the same kind of answer, like this person is healing this, or every once in a while they would say, there's this number of people on earth that do this. And I would say, do what? And they wouldn't answer anymore. So it was to be a path of trust and discovery for me.
Yeah.
And that took about a year and a half. And then I just loved the process. And I'm so glad that it came through that healing context. And it also came through my hands first. So I just enjoyed it and allowed it because it was beautiful and the people were having wonderful experiences.
So this was a kind of healing process that you were doing.
Yeah. And then a friend said, hey, come to this workshop with me. And we went just to enjoy the workshop and each other and have a great time. And it was a lovely workshop. It had nothing to do with light language. But the teacher showed some written light language, and she spoke some light language. And as soon as I saw it written, I knew that's what my hands are doing. Okay. They are writing that in the air over the client.
Oh, so writing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but through my hands, I call it sign language, light language, sign language. And that evening I thought, well, gee, I wonder if I can speak it too. And bloop, it just started coming out. So I went back to working with clients, and I could feel the sound wanting to come out. It was kind of pressing on me. And I just was not ready to do that. So I would hold the sound in. I'd let it come through my hands. But it got increasingly difficult to hold it in. And I just was not ready yet to expose that. It just seemed too weird for me. So one day, I did a public channeling, and the light language came out during that in front of everyone. And I was so scared and embarrassed. But it was actually a really beautiful experience because everybody was very accepting of it, and it was nice to finally have it out. And when that happened, it came out so loud and forcefully that one of my friends in the room just started dying laughing. She could not stop laughing. And it was so loud and forceful. There was a child that was about 12 or 13. She started crying. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Here I have somebody laughing. I've made a child cry. This is horrible. And yet the whole thing was very supportive. At the end, one of my clients, whose child I happened to make cry, he came to me afterwards and he said, I want another session for Monday. And he had worked with me for a long time where I was holding it in. He had now seen it very loud, and it made his own child cry. But he felt very drawn to it. So a few days later during his session, I realized there I was holding the sound in again. And at that point, my guide said to me, it's okay, you can hold the sound in. It's just going to take him longer to heal. Not because light language is the best or only way to ever heal someone, but because there I was holding something back. And here was someone who was very open to receive, but I was embarrassed. So at that point, I decided I can't hold it in. I cannot live knowing that I could have done more, but I was embarrassed. Yeah. So from that point on, I let it go. Let it free in session.
But do you know what you're saying, or is you just trust it's kind of healing language?
Yeah, so it is a unique form of channeling. You're in a channeled state, and there are times where I know exactly what I'm saying. There are times where I get just a gist or an overview, and then there are times where I don't have a translation at all. I just know that the information that's coming through is being received on a cellular level, and your higher self, as you're receiving that, is always deciding what you're going to release or what you're going to activate. Because the conscious mind doesn't understand the words, it can't bypass your free will. So your higher self decides what's going to be appropriate for you. It's a fascinating process that when I first began it, there was very little information about it. However, this has been with humanity since we can remember. There's every shamanistic culture, there's precedents throughout different religious cultures that still maintain this ability to connect with spirit and allow information to flow. What I find so fascinating is we're in a time now where we're moving through what I call ascension. We're moving through a very natural, rapid evolution that's just an interesting point in our evolution, where instead of being so physically focused and focused with the senses that see the physical world, we're now opening up to more of our subtle senses and our connection with the world in a different way. To me, light language is just one of many indicators of that we are starting to communicate much more heart-centered. We are starting to communicate in ways that are not as linear as we were taught to communicate, because we all learn our languages by memorization and watching body language and figuring out context. So when you're channeling light language, you're using a different part of your brain than you are when you're consciously talking. So it helps to expand how we're connecting, communicating, and relating to the world around us. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Can you compare it with ordinary channeling?
Yes, because I do both. I channel in English and I channel light language.
Okay.
And when I channel in English, I call it a different bandwidth, because I am still connecting and allowing information to flow in a way that's not initiating from my own choice. But if I pay attention too much, because I can understand the words, if I pay attention too much, I'll actually pull the channel off.
Okay.
And I can hear it, but I can't go, oh yeah, that reminds me, because it'll stop channeling. When I'm channeling light language, it is like being wide open, where I'm receiving the channeling, but I'm also observing all of this other data that is either something I'm feeling, it's something I'm seeing, it's something I'm hearing or understanding. It is a different experience, because since you don't technically understand the words in a way that you're used to understanding words, you're open to receive all of this other data along with the transmission. And that's one of the things that I found so fascinating in my own process of opening up to light language, is I feel like I get these magnificent downloads or these quantum, these very small understandings that make a huge difference in my own life, of understanding how we work, how the universe works, how we're connected in ways that aren't necessarily easy to explain, but it's like they become part of you. You get it on a deeper level because that light language is communicating with you in such a deep way.
But if you talk light one language with me, I don't understand anything, but my higher self will understand them. And
Yes.
you give a message to my higher self or do a healing with my higher self or something?
Yes, your higher self, which is just you in non-physical form,
Yeah.
your higher self would be deciding how that information is going to affect you, what you're going to release, what you're going to hold on to, what you're going to activate. So, for example, if I was to consciously talk to you about love, someone might have some preconceived notions about that and might have some unconscious beliefs that they don't deserve love. So in having the conscious conversation, there can be parts of them that don't release because they're consciously thinking about how, when, well, what about, what if? And the light language helps bypass those mental limitations.
Okay, wow. That was a good one.
The other thing that I love about it is the healing. Some of it is obvious in a moment, and then there's other aspects of it that you can't pinpoint to, oh, well, I know this because Jamye said, someone else taught me.
Yeah.
It unfolds from within you, and you start to recognize your own wisdom, because the light language will help you understand things, maybe not in that direct moment, maybe some, but later on you'll just keep unfolding from within you.
I understand you have a very passion for light language, but we're also going to talk about Ascension today. And I'm a little bit interested in your perspective on what Ascension is, and what you can do with it, and how important it is, and things. But first I want you to explain in easy words what is Ascension
Yes.
in our spiritual world.
Yeah, so to me, Ascension is us evolving into a more consciously connected species, where we are understanding our connection more than just the separation. And this separation is part of the human physical experience now. But as we start to recognize how connected we are, it's going to transform how we all interact as a global species and how we interact as a cosmic species. Because Ascension is more of our conscious connection with the subtle realm, so that we're seeing beyond.
But that's the end product, isn't it? I am a little bit. I looked up Ascension in Wikipedia. It says action of rising to consciously a higher level.
Yeah.
That's the same thing, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because to me, a higher level means a higher level of understanding, a higher level of connection, a higher level of choices that feed into the whole collective, not the separation. And the process itself is one that requires each individual to become empowered, to start to make more conscious choices for their health, for their emotion and mental health, their spiritual health. So it's a process that we're all going through in different ways, some of it more consciously. And when you start making more conscious choices with it, you're going to see more of a rapid progression in everything in your life.
Okay, but is it the same thing as self-development? Can I say it's the same thing? Or?
I think in essence it is, because self-development is a huge component of it. It can get easy sometimes to just expect that there's something from the outside that's going to create it, but it's really about us creating it for ourselves. So as you're working on your relationships, you're enhancing your ascension. When you're working on your physical health, you're enhancing your ascension. So it's definitely a holistic approach, and self-development, I think, is the core of it.
Because here at the Unity Center, people come for, I say they work for self-development. People come here to open up traumas, blockages, and all these things. So what they're really doing is working for their own ascension.
Absolutely.
That's a more interesting to know that, and you feel sick. You don't tell your friends you're going into a therapist, but really you're working on your own ascension to higher levels of consciousness.
Absolutely.
That was an interesting one.
It is so important. Something as powerful as releasing a trauma can move you forward so rapidly. This is the thing that's changing, and why it's all about conscious connection is we tend to, as many societies, when I say we tend not to see the connection between a past trauma and the things that are occurring for us physically. And they are absolutely interrelated. So as you do that work of letting go of that, you are exponentially progressing your ascension forward. Because on a vibrational level, you no longer have that discord that is unconsciously leading you to choices and health choices, thought patterns, emotions, risking love. That all of those really affect your ascension and really affect every aspect of your life.
But the main thing that's happening, I read on your website, it's a really fascinating website. That's you're really doing is connecting your head with your heart.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's then you get this what do you call it? An effecten. This when you connect two good things. 2 + 2 doesn't be 4. 2 + 2 is 5, 6. So if you connect your head and your heart, you're gonna get a big more power.
Absolutely, because your heart is your strongest electromagnetic frequency, and the brain is the second strongest. And as you connect those two, you are thinking more with your broad connection rather than trying to figure everything out and separating. The brain is a beautiful mechanism. It helps us categorize, analyze, and delineate and refine. But when the heart is connected with that, we are choosing with a much more holistic and connective approach to life.
Yeah, and then things happen more easily also.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's. I need to take a check here. A journey into balance and wholeness.
Yes.
It's the same thing. One thing about Ascension in Norway, we have a little bit problem with reaching out to people to understand what's going on. They usually go to the doctor if they have a problem. Go to the doctor and take a pill, and then problem's over, and they can just go to the beach and go to the television
or work more.
Work more. How can we reach out to people? Do you have any answer for that?
Yeah. You know, sometimes it's easiest to meet people where they need something most. And what most people are experiencing is a lot of constant stress and a feeling like they're a little disconnected or lost. Like they don't know how to manage their lives easily. It just all feels like more and more stress. So when you start recognizing that there's so much support available that can help make all of that easier, much less doctor trips, much less pills that are creating other problems that just aren't obvious in the moment. There's ways to deal with your relationships, your children, your overall stress that can help evolve you in ways that help make the next step easier and the next step easier. So beginning a meditation practice, beginning a holistic body practice like massage and Tai Chi and all kinds of different therapies that can help support the system before disease occurs. And then there's so many modalities that assist with mitigating the diseases that often are generally caused by stress and lack of connection. That's the human body is meant to be connected with the earth and with each other. And as we're connecting our hearts and our minds and we're finding ways to connect more inward, what you end up finding is that you connect so much more broadly and strongly with life. Everything changes. You start to see synchronicities occurring, and you start having your own insights. Your own natural intuitive systems will open up, and it just becomes fascinating, and life starts to feel much more supportive and smooth.
That sounds like a good alternative to medicines.
It is. When you need them, but most times we just don't need them.
Yeah, I agree on that one. Is Ascension going faster now?
I think it is. Because there's a couple of different reasons for this. We as a species are kind of hitting that critical mass, and we start to support each other through it. And then we're also moving through an aspect of physical space where there's a lot more photonic energy. We're moving through that photon belt. There's a lot more physical support for the evolution that we're experiencing. So it's both sides of that are helping to support us into much more evolution. But this is very natural to us. We naturally evolve. We are creative. We continue to improve things, even though sometimes it doesn't seem like it. But that is very natural to us. And as we start connecting inward more, we're going to find much more support for our very natural creative tendencies. And the ascension that we're going through is a very natural evolution.
What is where are we going? What's the end point?
The end point? Who knows? But where we are going is much more heart-centered, where everything that we do, we're considering the whole much more than we do now. That we are recognizing that we're a global species, we're recognizing that we're connected to the earth, and we're recognizing that we're connected to the cosmos. Generally find this in all of the indigenous cultures throughout the world, where it's very natural to them that you have to honor the earth. And to so many of us, that's a very natural, it's kind of an obvious statement. But it's not necessarily how most societies are operating. And that's going to start to change. We're going to start becoming much more conscious with everything that we're doing.
Is that going to happen by itself, or is it people talking about you have to have a kind of level of enough people to before it goes over a new paradigm?
Yeah. There's no guarantee to how that would occur, but in my opinion, it ultimately is already inbuilt to kind of create that critical mass where the parents are connecting much more deeply with children, the children are much more connective, and you don't see it everywhere, but that critical mass does build where it becomes much more evident that we work better when we support each other. So I don't prescribe to one mass, we all just turn into light. I experience that we're going to have much more of a natural progression where it seems very rapid. You know, when I look at how I experienced my own psychic senses then versus now, that's a very big difference to me. And that kind of thing is going to keep increasing. So we're going to see more of that critical mass starting to occur.
Yeah, anytime soon.
I know, right?
Nobody knows. Okay. Ascension symptoms. If people out there, they have all kinds of symptoms. What are ascension symptoms? Or are all the symptoms some kind of ascension symptoms?
So not everything is an ascension symptom. Sometimes you do have something that your physical body is processing through, but there are some very common ascension symptoms. And if ever you're in doubt, get a test. And if they can't find anything, that's usually an ascension symptom, because they're like, yeah, we don't know why this is occurring. So don't take a pill for it. It's not going to help. But there are some very common ones, because what is occurring is your body is physically readjusting to understanding a broader spectrum of frequencies. So a very common one is tinnitus, or hearing a ringing in the ears. Yes.
Okay.
And what's occurring is your body is sensing frequencies that you couldn't necessarily sense before, but now it's becoming available to you, and so your body is having to readjust. Sometimes that's going to be high pitched, sometimes it's going to come and go, sometimes it's a very low frequency, and you're sensing more of those lower frequency spectrums that are part of your earth connection. There are some other really common ones. Sometimes your vision will blur from time to time. Sometimes you'll have a period where connecting words or expressing becomes a little more difficult. Sometimes you'll have times where other senses get more heightened, like smells become very heightened, or your skin gets really sensitive. It's just your nervous system readjusting to the frequency spectrum. So there's quite a few common ones, and if you're ever in doubt, get a test and don't take a pill.
What kind of test is that?
Well, I don't know. You know, sometimes with I've had plenty of people say this weird thing started happening with my eyes, so I went to the doctor. They can't find anything wrong. That's when you know.
Okay, so then it's ascension. Well, that's a good
sign.
So
if it's worrying you, get it tested. You'll find out they can't find anything, and you know you're good.
Have you heard about Bashar, this channel?
Yes.
He said for a year or something about, he's talking about dimensions, where different people are going to be in different dimensions, and after some years they're going to lose contact with the other dimensions, and so on. Do you have any comment to that?
Yeah, so dimensions to me are always based on a perspective. So sometimes the numbering of them can be random because it's based on a certain perspective. However, what you start to discover is more of how you're perceiving things and experiencing things is beginning to flavor what's available to you in your experience. So one of the things that I channel about is we're going through a time of greater polarization, and it seems like people are very different. And what that starts to do is kind of separate who you're interacting with, how you're interacting, and eventually it will be as if we're experiencing two different things. So I think from a very practical standpoint, that split, we're beginning to see that. From a physical standpoint, it's not quite so obvious, and I feel like that's going to take quite a bit of time, that it's not going to be an instantaneous event where we can't see the other people that we don't agree with.
No more problems with the neighbor, huh?
Yeah. I think it's more about us learning to communicate in heart-centered ways, and then you naturally start to draw more of those experiences and they become more obvious to you.
Yes, I'm going through my questions now, and Anything else you wanted to say that I haven't thought about?
No, I think you've done a great job at covering what it is. And what I would like to reiterate is the more self-healing you do, you are expanding your ability to connect with the world, with yourself, with your own psychic senses, and every bit of healing helps exponentially as humanity is going through this change. Every bit of it is important, and the more you find places like the Unity Center to support you in that growth, the more you're going to find your community that you match with.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you can't do any demonstration on light language in a hurry?
Yes, I can. I can handle it any time.
Okay,
It's
demonstration
always available
on
to
light
us.
language.
So I want to remind you that your higher self is activating the encodements for you. I'm never doing anything to you. And just notice whatever you're sensing. It looks very weird, but I got over being weird a long time ago. Jamo saktiro hatirat isail ishtormai hitnem etushtain. Shan usaranai taru arumayek tarasel neshtormat inen. And shura sektirayet ora helel mashta warat an. San ishtarone suktaramai hitani ieleli iam jano sariatana.
I got goosebumps.
I want to share what they were saying during that one.
Okay.
It was a very loving transmission about the angels that we are. And as we all step into more of that and remember that truth, that's when the world changes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Einar. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited to be in Norway.
That's good. We love like that.
Thank you.